Hey, I'm Dr. John Azar-Dickens with Coach Jay Stevenson. We're going to talk today a little bit about running and starting a running program. A lot of people have the desire to be physically fit. They want to start running. They get whatever the urge is. Maybe they saw a race. They have a friend that runs. They read something, whatever. They decided, hey, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to run. How do we go from zero to running, and what's the best way to make that transition and how to do it? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about, because I hear a lot of people with that desire. They go out and they start running. They haven't been running at all, and within a week or 2 weeks or even a month, they suddenly are hurt. They're miserable. They don't like it, and they quit.
So I've talked about this before in terms of the cycle that you're mentioning, which is you start too fast, you get hurt, you quit, period of inactivity, repeat the cycle. It's really a frustrating cycle. And we just talked in the last video about getting properly fitted,
right?
Which you definitely want to do. Get the right shoes, right equipment, right gear for you and your feet. Something I didn't say that I need to say about that is don't ask whoever's the best runner in your community, hey, what shoes should I get? And then just get whatever they get.
Right.
It's going to be different for you, most likely, than it is for them. But as far as training goes, the biggest mistake is people remember in high school when they used to run 2 miles or whatever it is, and they decide, well, I did that then, I'm just going to go start with 2 miles now. And that's a mistake.
So distance is not our goal.
No.
I always say that effort should be your goal.
Yeah.
Because you should be, because a lot of it's going to be on body composition. So for example, let's say somebody in our fitness level runs a certain distance. It's not going to be the same as if somebody who hasn't been running and maybe is overweight is running the same distance, because they're going to work a whole lot harder than we have potentially. And so it's about exertion level, how hard you're working versus a distance.
So I'll give you a great example of somebody I've been working with for a while. We started with this person at walking 5 minutes 3 days a week.
Did they
5
resist?
minutes. And they were like, you are nuts. I can do more than that. And I was like, yeah, but you're going to get hurt if you go run a mile or 2 miles. They want to run 2 miles 3 days a week.
Right.
So 5 minutes of walking 3 days a week. But we're 2.5 years after we started that, and now they're up to 25, 20 miles a week of running.
And wouldn't you agree, some people can pull that off, especially younger people who maybe weren't running, and all of a sudden they get it in their mind to do it, and they can go out and do a 5K without having trained properly and get away with it.
Yes.
But as you get older, as you gain more weight, that's a whole lot.
I would say the vast majority of people that are over 35, definitely over 40, should not try to do that if you're just starting an exercise program. Now, it's different if you've been running and you took a few weeks off and then you're back at it. You can probably get away with a little more aggressive program. But my thing is, the very first 2 weeks is the most likelihood of you getting hurt. And that goes for you, for me, for anybody.
Right.
And that first 2 weeks needs to be the most conservative. After you get beyond 2 weeks, you can start to gradually go up. So the example I was giving before, 5 minutes, 3 days a week, after 2 weeks of that, we went to 10 minutes, 3 days a week. And I think part of the problem is people don't realize how quick you can build. So you may be really frustrated the first 2 weeks if you're only doing 5 minutes, 3 days a week, like, why am I even getting out here and doing this? Well, don't think in such short chunks of time. If you can think, man, in 8 months from now, it's going to be 3 miles 3 times a week.
Yeah.
If you can think that way, and in 8 months beyond that 8 months, it's going to be 4 or 5 times a week. And then I created a lifestyle instead of just a quick training program. And the same thing goes for weightlifting, walk, or if you're not going to run, if you're just going to walk.
And when do you recommend starting walking?
Starting out with that lower volume for 2 weeks.
Right.
And part of what you're doing there is you're creating the consistency and the pattern of exercise.
The behavioral patterns.
Yeah, you're not just doing the physical, you're also creating the mental pattern. I know every day my time is blocked off when I exercise. I do it in the morning because that's when my body feels the best. I like the mornings. But if you do it in the afternoon, man, don't plan meetings if you can avoid, or create a time that's somewhat regular for you. We talked about that before.
It's also the value of goal setting. You know, the basic process of setting a goal each day and achieving that goal, it reinforces the next day, and it reinforces the next day. And so, you know, those of us who run all the time and have our pattern of our program every week, that's also what we forget is we're meeting goals every single day, and that's good practice of setting a goal and meeting it day after day after day. But I think a lot of the traps people fall in is they see runners and they think, oh, I want to do that, and they think that if they can't just go from zero to running what other people are doing, that somehow they're not a runner, or I'm not made to do it. And I don't think they recognize how hard it is to get to the point.
Yeah.
You know, you hear our groups, we'll talk about, oh, we're going to go, how far are you going? Oh, we're going 20 today. Oh, okay, like it's no big deal. But we've been doing it for years and years and years. And I think if somebody was listening to that, they would think, oh, I can just, in a week or in a month, be able to run those distances. And that's really hard on your body.
Yeah.
You've got to ease into that.
And then the interim between that example of, you know, progressing from 5 minutes of walking 3 times a week to 2 or 3 miles, or, you know, if you put it in time, it may be 5 minutes of exercising to 30 minutes of exercising. You can vary the intensity too as you're growing the running and reducing the walking, or you're growing the intensity of the lifting or biking or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So an example of that would be 5 minutes of walking 3 times a week for 2 weeks. Then the next week you could go up to 10 to 15 minutes of walking 3 times a week. Then you get finally in week 6 to 30 minutes 3 times a week. And then you can start adding once a week a run day, where you do 2 minutes of walking, 1 minute of light jogging. And then eventually, so that's a 2-to-1 ratio walk to run. Eventually you can flip that and do 1 minute walking, 2 minutes running.
Well, that's Galloway's. I really like Galloway's program. That's a great way to transition.
You eventually grow that to the point where you're running the most of it, and maybe you have 2 days of walk run and 2 days of just walking.
Right. Well, so the goal here is to transition in slowly. You may have to start with walking before you can run, no problem. Just don't let your ego kind of take over and make you think you can go out too fast. You're going to end up possibly getting hurt and then kind of killing your motivation to even want to do it. So just think about that slow transition and bringing it on slowly. You'll eventually get there. We all did. Everybody started. I tell people we all started at the beginning. Mm-hmm. You know, I walked my first 5K. I tried to run it, couldn't do it. And so we all have to start.
That?
Oh, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So we have to start somewhere. And so start slowly, work your way up, and you'll get there eventually with consistency and patience.
Yeah, and if you need any more tips or help with the training programs, you can email me or check out my website, Coach J Running, and love to help you out any way I can.